thinking something similar in the sense of staying ready to keep from having to get ready. And so from a mental health lens, I'm thinking about, are you practicing the things that help you to feel like you? Are you connecting to your community? Are you practicing your self-care strategies so that when those tough times do come, you're not without support. You're not without community. And so making sure people are staying ready by doing the things that keep them grounded, getting to the gym, eating healthy, using your faith, your community, staying in tune with those things so that when hard times come, you already have a resource of support that you can lean on.
There's a few things. Number one, screenshot everything. And I mean screenshot for your own portfolio. So I'm not talking about the drama that's happening at the office, but start documenting the praises that you've gotten, the testimonials you've gotten. Start recording the great work that you have done. How have you contributed to the workplace? What are some projects you've worked on? How have you helped people? Because I think when those signs start coming in, we naturally navigate to fear, but I think we need to remind ourselves of the things that we have done, the skills that we have acquired, and start reminding ourselves of how great we are, because Black women, we do the absolute most at these companies, right?
My advice to people is every 6 months, update your resume. Think about the things that you've done. It is very easy to just fall into a rhythm where you do your work every day and you're a superstar. But if you don't document what that work looks like, if you're laid off, it's going to be super overwhelming. You're going to be flooded with emotions. And then when it's time to start looking for a job, you're sitting there and you're like, what did I do? And most of the time you don't have access to your laptop. You don't have access to your emails anymore, so you can't go back, and the recency effect will come into play.
Welcome to Thriving in the Game, a podcast dedicated to exploring what Black women need to navigate the corporate world of technology, offering insights, strategies, and personal stories that will affirm, validate, and encourage you on your journey up the corporate ladder. I'm your host, Alicia. Join me as we learn how to thrive together. Like many others, I have been deeply affected by the numbers of Black women essentially forced out of the workforce due to layoffs over the last 6 months. In 2025, we have been the largest demographic impacted, not just in tech, but overall. As someone who spent nearly 20 years in tech, I've been through multiple rounds of layoffs, 5 to be exact, across different organizations at different points in my career. I absolutely understand the journey as both a survivor, but also as someone having to navigate a layoff season. It's been on my heart to do something, and this definitely won't be the last. But outside of mentoring and actively sharing jobs on LinkedIn and connecting people, I wanted to do something. I wanted to have a conversation on how do we help Black women navigate this market and layoffs with confidence in a healthy and productive way? And 2, how do we simply encourage the Black woman on the other side of this screen? So I reached out to my fabulous network of women. I wanted to have an intentional conversation from a mental health, human resources, and a career strategy lens. Each of my guests brings their own amazing backgrounds and expertise. So with that, please welcome April Preston, Carolyn Whiteman, and Kimmoy Matthews. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, and as you're comfortable, tell us how layoffs have impacted you or your work in the past or present. April, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Thank you, Alicia, for having me. My name is April Preston. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm the owner and lead therapist at Kovu Healing. Kovu means scar in Swahili, and we are in the business of healing emotional scars. We provide individual, couples, group, family therapy, and we are located in the DMV area. We are completely providing telehealth services right now, and so we are reaching our folks any and everywhere in the DMV area. how my clients are being impacted by the layoffs, they are stressed. They are overwhelmed. They do not know what tomorrow brings. For those who still maintain their jobs, there isn't the certainty that they'll continue to have a job. They're also seeing their colleagues leave, each day. And so people are stressed. They're overwhelmed. They're really not having that sense of security that they've previously had. And so we are definitely supporting folks in managing these changes.
Carolyn, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Thanks, Alicia. Thanks for having me today. My name is Carolyn Whiteman. I'm currently the head of talent acquisition for a chemical company. And I've been in the field of human resources for over 20 years. And to answer your question about how layoffs have impacted me in the past or present, obviously being in human resources, I've actually led layoffs at various companies. I've given the messages to people about their jobs going away. I haven't personally been laid off, but I've seen the direct impact of how it impacts employees. And thankfully, I've worked for organizations that give a lot of support, where they offer EAP, they offer therapy, they offer outplacement services, or severance to where people can at least have a little bit of support for their families between the time they get laid off and the time they find their other jobs. So, looking forward to today's conversation so we can, give some tips and advice for folks navigating through this cycle.
And Kimmoy, tell us about you.
Hi, everyone. I am a senior content designer, and I've had the pleasure of working with big tech companies who are known for their layoffs, unfortunately. So I've worked with AT&T, Best Buy, Google, and I would say I've been impacted way back in maybe 2008, I think it was. And it took me about 8 months back then to get a new job. And what I'm seeing this time around is with clients, it's taking a lot longer to get jobs on average. And also I'm seeing a shift into contract work. So I'm seeing more people are open to actually having their own start and end date instead of have a company, just randomly decide to do a layoff where they're surprised by it. So those are some of the changes I'm seeing.
Obviously, each of you coming from a different lens and with your backgrounds and expertise in mind, I wanted to start the conversation around how do we essentially help Black women in corporate environments prepare for a potential layoff? So first, it's helpful to know that according to usafacts.org, layoffs are a constant in the U.S. labor market. As a matter of fact, from 2001 to 2019, on average, there are about 20 million layoffs each year, right? So one, it's not something that's atypical generally, but obviously now we're seeing jobs that were kind of known for being safe, like your federal workers. A lot more of them are being impacted these days. And so it can be kind of a jarring experience when you're not used to dealing with it. One of the things, though, to note, unfortunately, is that, when you're looking at labor statistics, they kind of compare period to period. So definitely the shakeup is real in 2025. From January through May this year, the layoffs and discharges totaled about 8.4 million, which is about 2.4% higher than the same period last year. So even though it's something that's not necessarily atypical, it's coming a lot faster and it's hitting Black women even harder. So I wanted to start the conversation around what are some of the key signs to pay attention to, right? Because, as people are dealing with this, sometimes it does feel really unexpected.
I can start. I think it depends on what industry you're in. I think, one thing when I working in oil and gas is cyclical. Right. So I think the biggest thing you can do is just pay attention to external indicators. Oil and gas tends to go through cycles, right? So when there's a boom, there's a lot of hiring. But then when you start hearing about economic conditions, when you start hearing about high gas prices, that's usually an indicator that there might need to be a company restructuring to help the company stay afloat during those times. I can't speak for tech. I've also worked in the med device industry. I think it's about paying attention to external factors and just preparing yourself just in case your company does decide to reorg.
I would say pay attention to department changes or restructuring, especially when they do it more than once in 1 year. That's usually a sign that some change is about to come. There's going to be a layoff somewhere. So start preparing. But I think even without external indicators, because of those facts that you shared, Alicia, I think it's important to always be prepared. Just expect it to happen and start, if you can, setting aside some automatic savings and save for that day whenever it does come, because I think most of us in our careers experience it or have been through it where our peers have gotten laid off. So I think it's just a matter of being ready for it and expecting it to happen.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking something similar in the sense of staying ready to keep from having to get ready. And so from a mental health lens, I'm thinking about, are you practicing the things that help you to feel like you? Are you connecting to your community? Are you practicing your self-care strategies so that when those tough times do come, you're not without support, you're not without community? And so making sure people are staying ready by doing the things that keep them grounded, getting to the gym, eating healthy, using your faith, your community, staying in tune with those things so that when hard times come, you already have a resource of support that you can lean on.
Yeah, that's all really good. I mean, because that was one of the things that I was thinking of is, especially if you haven't been through this before, there is kind of a lot of fear that is wrapped into this, right? This process. Once you kind of go through one layoff, you kind of know what to expect. Like Carolyn and Kimmoy alluded to, if your company provides their numbers, so to speak, if you can look at, if you have kind of those calls where, town halls, where they're telling you about the progress of the business. I've been in environments where we've gotten through most of the year and it's like, well, we're at 30% of our goals. And it's like, okay, that's, pay attention to that. And so, later when there was talk of a layoff, I wasn't surprised, but I find that a lot of people are. And then April, as you spoke to, I do think, as you said, stay ready so you don't have to get ready, I think is probably the new mantra of our workforce. I've been in a couple environments where it's, traditionally, they've never really experienced layoffs. So, they were telling people, hey, this isn't something that's going to happen, and then unfortunately, it did, right? So how do we help people kind of manage those feelings? Because I know there's kind of a piece of betrayal, but these aren't easy decisions that just kind of come about, right? So how do we speak to people who are kind of in that space of processing?
I can jump in. I think it's a matter of naming what it is that you are feeling, not judging the reaction that you are having to it, but really creating space where you can say, I'm disappointed. I'm caught off guard. I'm sad. I'm scared. Being able to have safe spaces to name what you are feeling can go a long way in helping people to manage their emotions. I also do believe in creating space to not be okay, to not know the answer, to not know what's next, and sitting in that, as uncomfortable as it may be. I often encourage my clients to get comfortable in the discomfort. And that doesn't mean that we welcome it, but it means that we are experiencing something new. And so we couldn't possibly be an expert in something that you've never been through before. So allow yourself to be discombobulated. Allow yourself to not know. And I believe in the acceptance of that will create space and capacity for you to figure out your next steps. So really finding safe spaces with people or with yourself where you can begin to really take a look at what you are experiencing.
And Kimmoy, you mentioned something really good in terms of like starting to save and I wanted to explore a little bit more. So you also are, as a career coach, you are working with people around branding and building their skills. How should I be using this time? Like I said, if we're looking at someone who the layoff isn't here yet, but there's talk. What should I be doing to kind of prepare myself?
There's a few things. Number one, screenshot everything. And I mean screenshot for your own portfolio. So I'm not talking about the drama that's happening at the office, but start documenting the praises that you've gotten, the testimonials you've gotten. Start recording the great work that you have done. How have you contributed to the workplace? What are some projects you've worked on? How have you helped people? Because I think when those signs start coming in, we naturally navigate to fear, but I think we need to remind ourselves of the things that we have done, the skills that we have acquired, and start reminding ourselves of how great we are, because Black women, we do the absolute most
Amazing.
at these
Absolutely.
companies, right? So we need to start creating portfolios. Even if we never share it with anyone else, we still want to have it for ourselves so that we can start having those conversations should we move on to a different career or look for a new job or things like that. So that's the first thing, is to screenshot everything. And then I would say the second thing is to take some time to think about what do you like about the job and what you don't. I've seen with clients, when they have a layoff or they had a bad experience at a job, they would wipe that job from their resume. It's like a trauma response. And I'm like, wait, what happened? Like, where's your experience? Where did it go? They're like, oh, I didn't like that job, so I kept it off my resume. Like, oh, no. You cannot throw your valuable skills down the drain. So, yeah, I would say make sure you keep track of what you actually liked. Even if there was a bad experience, there's something that you enjoyed doing or you were good at. So make note of those things. And of course, I'm an advocate for saving. That experience back in 2008, when I saw my savings go all the way down, and I didn't know about all the other resources that Carolyn mentioned with EAP. And, I had a mortgage at the time. I didn't know you could file for hardship. I didn't know a lot back then. So I would say, start looking into resources, because there are resources to help you through the difficult times, whether it's a career coach like myself, a therapist, going to HR, seeing all of the benefits that are available to you to help you through the process.
I'll add a little bit on top of that. Kimmoy, you triggered a thought for me as it relates to resumes. A lot of times, I work with a lot of people that are experts in their industry, and they've been in the job sometimes they've been in that industry for 13, 14 years. And internally, they might have moved maybe 2 or 3 positions, but they didn't have to really apply for those positions, because maybe it was hey, we think you're great at this job. It's an internal role. Just come on over, which means they haven't interviewed and they haven't updated their resume in 10 years. The average person that I tend to run across, because they've worked at the company for so long, why would you update your resume? You're not looking externally. You're happy where you're at. My advice to people is every 6 months, update your resume. Think about the things that you've done. It is very easy to just fall into a rhythm where you do your work every day and you're a superstar. But if you don't document what that work looks like, if you're laid off, it's going to be super overwhelming. You're going to be flooded with emotions. And then when it's time to start looking for a job, you're sitting there and you're like, what did I do? And most of the time, you don't have access to your laptop. You don't have access to your emails anymore, so you can't go back. And the recency effect will come into play, where you're going to remember the most recent work you've done, but you've done stuff for 10 years. Even I've just recently switched jobs, and I've been in my role now for about maybe this December will be 2 years. I had to tell myself, even as head of talent acquisition, go back and think about all the work you've done. I've done a ton of work, and just sitting back and thinking back, like, okay, 6 months ago, which project did I work on? What was the impact of that project? So my advice, long story short, is every 6 months while you're in role, update your resume. You don't have to make it fancy. Right now, you can use ChatGPT, throw those bullet points in there, let ChatGPT help you frame it, and then have that peace of mind that if you get laid off, at least all of your experiences and your work skills and everything that you've contributed to this organization is documented somewhere.
I just love that, because it can also serve as a self-esteem boost. I think sometimes we forget all that we've done.
Yep.
We have this therapeutic exercise where we encourage people to just look at their week and look at the small successes that you've had, the tiny victories. And it's amazing what people find in just looking at a week. Imagine taking a year of employment to see all the things that you've overcome and have been successful at. It can be a great self-esteem booster for those who might be experiencing a challenging time.
And to add to that, even with the young ladies that I've been mentoring, sometimes it helps just to have that conversation with somebody else, either in your field or one of your friends. I have oftentimes struggled, you do so much, it becomes natural that you just kind of write it off. And I literally had a conversation around value. I had someone who was just like, as a project manager, I don't add a lot of value. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're organizing, you're a semi-therapist and coach. You're the one who keeps the project on track, keeps people aligned. And so, a lot of the skills and a lot of what we bring to the table, I think sometimes we even overlook. So you do have to have that conversation with somebody and kind of talk through everything that you're doing. Now I want to shift the conversation to the hard part, right? So now it is official. I have been laid off. And so how do we start to help Black women who are in these environments, corporate, federal, medical, et cetera? How do we help them navigate being let go? How do they process this?
I feel like the therapist should go
I was going to
first.
say, I'm looking at April like, come on, therapist.
Everybody's like, April, it's your turn.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'll jump in.
Go right ahead.
Kind of similar to earlier, just allowing yourself to feel the emotions, ride those waves. Many folks who have been laid off are experiencing grief. Grief is not only experienced in the context of a loss of life, it can be a loss of lifestyle, a change in your lifestyle, a change in that stability that you've mentioned with employment. And so you can experience the stages of grief when being laid off. But I think it's a matter of allowing yourself to ride those waves. There's going to be good days, there's going to be challenging days, and not one of those days will be forever. It will not remain forever. It will change. It will flow. And so it's a matter of riding those waves. I do often bring up the frame of grief, because the stages of grief, that we experience when we experience major adjustments, because people don't often think that they are grieving, but let's think about it. How many of folks who have been laid off have experienced anger? Right? How many of them have experienced denial? This happened to me. I gave you 20 years, right? Bargaining. Well, maybe if I didn't ask for telehealth, then maybe, or working from remote, maybe I'd still be employed. That bargaining, right? Then we think about the depression and acceptance. And so this isn't a linear process. You don't just experience one, but it's a bit of a flow. So you can experience the depression and sadness and also experience anger in the next moment too. And so when I think about the grief lens, it often helps give an understanding to what you may be experiencing after such a major change. And that can allow people to understand that this is gonna ebb and flow. How you feel about it will ebb and flow, and ride the waves.
Now, I'm a little unhinged. So I'm going to say book a trip somewhere.
That works too.
I'm not mad at it.
I do believe in therapy. I have a therapist. So I do believe in processing your emotions, but I love traveling. And I think us as women, especially Black women, when we go through hard times, it's so easy to stay in the struggle of it. And I'm like, I just want us to get support and enjoy a little bit. Because 9 times out of 10, we are stressed anyway, right? And we were, there's some sort of relief in not doing that job anymore. And I think it's okay to celebrate just a little bit. Even if you can't go abroad, maybe, just take a little breather. Go to the spa in your city, or just take a, day to enjoy, not just struggle through the process. Oh, I can't go out because I don't have a job, or, oh, I can't do this because I don't have an income. Like, do something, even if you have to paint your own nails, like do something for yourself to celebrate, because it's not always all bad. So that would be my advice.
My sister coined the phrase fun employment. where
Mhm.
it's fun employment. So it's you can't have fun for long, depending on what your financial situation is. But I agree
Right.
with all of this. And the only thing I would add is take the time to dream about what your next opportunity is. I think sometimes, like I said, if you're kind of in your role and moving and grooving, a lot of times you don't look up to think about what you want to do next. And the a positive side of being forced to kind of sit down and think about what to do next is thinking about what's doing next. What do you want to do? What didn't you like about this job? What would you change? Because that's going to help shape and guide your job search. So use the opportunity to dream and to, depending on where you're at with your spirituality, to pray and to seek guidance from wherever you seek your guidance from, whether it's mentors, a higher power, to kind of to dream and say, okay, what's next for me? And it can be better than where I was before. I think sometimes people can kind of get stuck in that grief cycle of woe is me. And there's always space for that. But I think it's always good to use the opportunity to think about what could be better on the other side. The grass could be greener. And use the time to think through that.
Well, yeah, I think all of that is good because that's one of the things that I was wanting to talk about. It's like, how do you leverage this time? I think immediately we go into, let me find another job. Okay, I've got to find unemployment. But I do think it's helpful, like you all have said, to one, just take time to process, take time to rest. And then, of course, take time to, either take a trip or do some fun employment and relax. But with that, over time, like Kimmoy mentioned in 2008, her journey took a lot longer. And also, at top of 2009, I was out of work that was my second layoff, and I was out of work for 9 months. So we keep seeing these stories, people sharing, the GoFundMes and kind of the dire LinkedIn posts. How do we start to help people who've been out of work a long time? And then also, how do they, Carolyn, how do they stand out as a candidate? Because if I've spent some time relaxing and having fun, but now, like Kimmoy said, those savings have dwindled down. How do we help them kind of take the next steps?
I think it goes back to, if you think about from a candidate perspective, making sure that you're able to articulate the work you've done. I think it's so common now for people to take sabbaticals and breaks that it's okay for you to have a gap on your resume as long as it's explainable, right? Sometimes people just struggle having time off. I've seen I just interviewed a candidate a couple weeks ago that had maybe like a 6-month gap on their resume. And they said, you know what, I used this time to see if I wanted to start my own consulting. And they were very honest about it. And they were like, I used that time off because I think sometimes people feel like, oh, it's taken me a long time to find a job, so therefore I'm unworthy, or therefore nobody wants me, and then I'm going to look like a bad candidate. I think as long as you're honest and authentic with, this is what I spent the last 9 months doing. I've brushed up on my skills. I've taken some courses. I've understand what's happening. I would say, fine, rest, but there's a little bit of work as well, right? So I think it's okay to explain, hey, I know what's happening in the industry right now. Talk about the current events. Let the employer know that, yes, you might see a gap and it's taken me a while, but here's what I was doing during that time to make myself even more valuable and to make myself even more qualified than I was before.
So yeah, I've taken several career breaks. I feel like I'm known for that at this point. And I have always been honest. I always say I took time off to travel. And they're always intrigued, like, where did you go? Right. And what I do is I do my best to drive the conversation. So I always have a presentation ready so that they don't focus too long on the gap. Right? I want to focus on my skills. And this is where the documenting, the screenshots of all your work that you've done, so that you give them something to focus on visually. So now you can see, okay, here's a screenshot of the project I worked on. Here's an example of the people I worked with. And I'm driving the conversation so that way they're asking me questions about what I want them to ask me questions about. So they're no longer focused on, oh, she wasn't working for 6 months, right? So I think that would be my best tip for anyone who's going through that right now.
In April, before, I definitely want you to speak in terms of like, how do we keep that encouragement? Because that next piece is, what if I'm just not getting the interviews, right? But before we go too far, I know we cannot get away from AI, artificial intelligence. And I think Kimmoy is a wonderful example of someone who's been exploring and not, you can share tools. Like, I think it's very easy to do a search of those tools, but like, Kimmoy, how do you build your skills like during this time? Like you said, a portfolio. And I think that's a really novel idea. I haven't done that before. So yeah, can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yes. So of course, there's a traditional ChatGPT. Can you believe ChatGPT is traditional now? There's also beautiful AI, which helps you create presentations. There's Canva, and they have their own AI built in to help you make really nice presentations. So that's what I've been using to create my presentations. And I also have a presentation about me playing with AI. So this is a power of actually giving presentations because it makes someone pay attention. So I think it's maybe 7 slides. These are the things I've explored. I've tried creating an AI avatar. I've used AI on my job to increase the efficiency of something. I save a lot of time because I use this AI. That's all the presentation is about. It's how I've explored AI. There's lovable AI for anyone who has an app idea that they just want to test and see what it's like. You could experiment with that. And even if you're no longer in your previous job, you could still do a sample project as if you were at the job. So let's say I no longer work at Best Buy, but there was something I feel like would have been a great opportunity if I was still there. I would experiment with it using lovable AI and say, you know what, this is what I would have done, or this is what I would do next, and have that in the presentation so that they can see I'm still keeping up with AI. I'm still, thoughtful of how I can contribute to the workforce. So I would say that's how I would leverage AI today.
And oftentimes we're being left out of AI. We see there's a lot of discussion right now around kind of how people are using AI to perpetuate stereotypes of Black women. So the more we kind of take charge and take control, we can drive that conversation. But April, tell us how, again, so as we're thinking about, we've been resting, had our fun employment, now we're working on ourselves, our branding, I'm spending that time, but it's been, 3, 6, 9 months, and I'm still not getting the interviews. How do I keep going? How do I keep encouraged?
My mind goes in a number of different places. And so I'll go with, I feel like our ancestral roots. Nothing is new underneath the sun. We have been here in some shape or form before. And so I encourage folks often to talk to their elders. Ask Big Mama how she got through. Talk to the people at the church, those elders who have been through similar situations, and glean from them the things that they used that helped them to overcome. I also think it's a matter of taking time. And I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but I really do think we live in a society where we're on the go often, and we're often trying to distract ourselves, but really creating some space to say, yes, this is hard. This is hard, and I might need a little bit more in this season than I have in other seasons. So yes, connecting to those friends that can love on you, being intentional, that can encourage you. I got a friend right now, no matter what I'm going through, I can call and she got a word for me, right? I can put her on speed dial in some seasons. And so it's a matter of being intentional with yourself and riding those waves, yes. But I also think diving into the parts of you that feed you. I know that if I am praying, if I am eating well, if I'm getting to the gym, if I'm spending time with friends, if I'm spending time with myself, whatever it is I'm going through is a little bit easier. So I call it my bag, my 5 things that I know that will ground me no matter what season I'm in. And so having those things that when life feels like a bit of a tornado, that you are using strategies to keep you grounded and to keep you encouraged. I lastly would say finding a cause, something to back that's larger than yourself, shifting your focus off of your issues and your challenges, really stepping outside of yourself onto something new, because that helps us to build character. It also helps us to build capacity. And sometimes it's in the shifting of our focus that we actually find the solutions to our challenges. And so, yes, volunteer. Go to that, old folks home where mama stay and hang out for a little bit. For one, you'd be amazed about what the seniors have to say, but also taking a break from your own issues may help build your capacity to have the strength to go back and brainstorm, to go back and have that courage. Lastly, I would say find a place to play. So many adults go through life not having joy. Find moments each day to laugh, something silly. I got a Instagram folder that is just about reels that are hilarious to me. They're the stupidest thing. But if I need a laugh, right, it helps pick me up. And so finding time to laugh, to have joy, to experience fun can help us to have the energy and the capacity to continue to do the work.
Well, ladies, on the flip side, right, I want to explore for a minute because, April, you talk about the stages of grief. And so naturally, if I am the person experiencing the layoff, there's a certain processing that has to happen. There's a certain type of grief, betrayal, bargaining, all of those different things I'm going through, right? And then it's also setting my mind in terms of how I will play and create fun and hopefully rest, but also start preparing myself. But there's also those of us who are still in the company after that first layoff, right? We've actually survived maybe what may be the first round. So how do I manage the feelings of my friends, colleagues, even some of the ones I don't like? They were doing the work, right? So now they're gone. So now what do I do?
Yeah, those folks can also experience grief. That's still a major change. And so there may be anger associated with now having to do the work of two people. There may be the frustration and sadness that comes with the loss of relationships. Those folks that are still there can equally have a grief experience, but it can also be when you have survivor remorse.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that I got to stay and you didn't, and maybe your situation was more dire, or now I feel guilty. And I want to normalize those feelings and also say they're not yours to bear. You didn't make this decision. You didn't choose who stayed and who left. And so relieving yourself of carrying that responsibility, but also honoring that this too is a change for you. And it's not easy to be the one that's still there.
And I want to honor the decision makers. I'm not, so I want to tread carefully with this, Carolyn. Because like I said earlier, I don't think as much as we will, being on the receiving end of layoffs, whatever our opinions are, these are not always easy decisions to make, right? We cannot, if we could promise everyone a job and keep people, we would do that. But in terms of having to introduce this topic to people, how do you recommend they move forward? Because usually this is followed by some type of restructuring and a change of responsibilities. So I definitely want to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So, I can speak from personal experience. I've been the decision maker of, layoffs and having to carry that and giving the messages. And it's not easy, right? But it's about focusing on, okay, one, this is an organization I love. I'm getting value from working here. And also, what am I going to do for my team, those who remain? We had the day that we recently just went through layoffs at my company, and I sent everyone home. I said, you know what? it's been a tough day. It's 1:00 in the afternoon. You guys go home. We'll regroup tomorrow. Keeping an eye out on everyone. What we've done is actually we've done some courses on resilience, and helping people think about resilience, because right now, we understand that people are dealing with a lot inside of work, but outside of work, there's a lot of uncertainty with the economy, with tariffs, with the political environment, with the socioeconomic environment. So we talk about resilience, and just, I think as a manager and a decision maker, your job is to help shape the culture for your employees. So show up. I had an open door policy where people can come in and get a hug. And I'm not even that big of a hugger, but I was like, you know what? Y'all can come in and get a hug if you need it. And it just, we try to, it's a serious situation when people lose their jobs, but you still need people to be productive, right? But you want to, and as a manager, you want to acknowledge that. And I would say after about a week and a half, things started to get back to normal. People started joking around again. And, we did like an ice cream social, and just last week we had snow cones, right? So thinking about ways to maybe help soften the environment and being flexible. It's not about, okay, we just laid everybody off. Now everybody get back to work. You can't do that. That's not how human beings operate. You've got to give people the time and space to process while supporting them. And another thing that we did was say, okay, this is what the organization looks like now. And here's how those of you who remain, how you're going to contribute to helping the organization meet their goals. Because a lot of times companies do layoffs because maybe the economic outlook isn't looking great, or because they needed to reorg. So show your employees how they bring value to the organization and how they're going to continue to bring value. Because I guarantee you what they're thinking is, I'm next. So,
Yep.
And that's a scary place to be in, right? So how do you hold two things, right? How do you worry about being next, but also continuing to bring value? And as a manager, that's my job, is to continue having those town halls, having that open door policy, to continue to show employees, we value you. We want you to continue to work here, and we want you to enjoy working here. And what are the things that I can do to support that?
It's funny because right when I reached out to you all with this idea, I work for an organization that has never had a layoff before. And then literally within 2 weeks, we had a layoff. And so I think I'm glad I was kind of practicing what you were saying, Carolyn, because one, it was, I didn't pretend like it didn't happen, right? Like these things went down on a Friday, Monday, and I just couldn't sit there and, okay, well, let's have stand up and move forward. It was like, let's acknowledge, let's give space. And like you said, over time, things start to normalize again. But I think that feeling of, am I next, is still, I feel it, right? Like I have that thought, it's lingering for me. So I think, Kimmoy, as you've, kind of been through this process and then going back to work, post the layoff, like, again, what should we be doing, right? Like, we want to be productive in our jobs, but what should we also be doing for ourselves to prepare in case we're next?
Okay, so one of the effects that typically happen in these cases is you're understaffed, right? So usually we're overworked because now we have less people. So before I get into what are some things you can do for the layoff, I think I want to encourage Black women to speak up about their workload.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to set meetings with your manager or whoever you're reporting to about your workload, what it is you're doing. If they're using Jira or anything to track progress, projects, tickets, you guys know the environment at your workplace. I want you to start using it, be as detailed as possible. Like, I am fully booked, right? If you're in meetings a lot, I want you to share that, because I think like I said, we do the absolute most in the best way. And I think people look at it as a badge of honor. And sometimes we carry it as a badge of honor, but sometimes, a lot of times, it's stressing us out, it's wearing us out, where, it's just hard to do that work that we're already doing. And then now that there's less people, there's the emotional, weight of what's been going on. That's a lot for any person to take on, especially Black women. So I just want to say, please speak up. Please share your workload and share that it is a challenge. Don't just share it like, this is all that I'm doing. No, like, this is a challenge and I would like some support. And that support could look like, I want to work from home a day out of the week, or I would like to take some time off, or can I get an assistant? Or, is there someone else who can help me, right? Ask for that support. Going back to AI, there are a couple of tools that I always use with my clients. I start with the easy ones first, and then we get to more of the advanced tools. So the first one is called jobscan.co. And what you can do is, if you're not getting interviews or you're not sure if your skill set is aligning with what's going on in the marketplace, you can take your current resume and you put it in jobscan.co, and then you take a job description, whether it's something you're interested in or maybe it's your current title at another company. Just put it in there, and what it will do is give you a match rate to see how well is your resume, is your experience matching with that job description. And I've had clients start with 0. Like Carolyn said, sometimes people haven't updated their resumes in forever, right? They start at 0. And I always try to get my clients up to 60% at least. There's also JobRight, that's RIGHT. .ai. It has a similar function, but there's more features where they give you jobs that you could consider based on your skill set, and they scan your resume. So it gives you a sense of, okay, these are some of the skills that I qualify for. Is that the kind of direction I want to go to, or do I want to go somewhere different? And if I do, then I have a tool to help me figure out what the match rate is. So those are my 2 tools to start with. And then there's another one that's a little bit more advanced. I recommend after you've had clarity and you know exactly where you want to go, then you can use resumeup.ai, and that will help you. It just makes applying for jobs so much easier. But this is after you've gone through the process. Like typically that's like week 4, week 6 with my clients. So, you know exactly where you want to go to. You're confident. Now you're feeling like, yes, I know the value I want to bring. So now I'm just applying with confidence and with conviction. So those are my 3 tools to help with that process.
Well, that's good. Because I mean, everybody is, again, it's kind of one of the conversations that I feel like you all have answered. It's like, you come across this person who's like, yeah, y'all, this is cute. This little discussion is nice, but I've been doing this for almost a year. Like, I'm not trying to hear that. But I mean, obviously we can't control and give you a job. We would have if we could have, right? But I do think most of us are used to kind of that traditional path. Like, I've never been without a job. And November 2023, I took a sabbatical. My sabbatical was only supposed to be 4 months. It was almost 13, because when I did start going back to work, I mean, I'm used to getting jobs off of LinkedIn. I mean, it was crickets. I probably applied to over 300 organizations, and that was me being picky. That wasn't even like, oh, let me get a job. This is, I'm purposefully looking at, with clarity, as Kimmoy highlighted, and it still took as long as it took. And then it came from someone that I used to work with, and now I work for her. But, I think using those tools just can give you, and hopefully even revive you a little bit in terms of your job search and things like that. But what happens when you've been in a toxic environment, and like 2025 was about to be your year? You were going to be applying, you were going to be up out of this place. And now it kind of feels like I'm stuck. What do you recommend for someone kind of walking through that?
I would say, just on top of it, what we've already discussed, networking, getting an outside perspective. A lot of times you feel stuck. Maybe it's your manager, maybe it's the role you're doing. I think people undervalue the importance of networking, especially when it comes time for job search. Yes, you can use LinkedIn, but it's always better if you know somebody else at that company or somebody knows somebody. So the most recent job that I'm in right now was due to networking. It was me mentioning that I was interested in coming back to Houston. And then next thing I know, there was somebody that knew somebody at the company that I'm at that said, hey, there's an HR role for you. So I would say use that time to just look through your network, look on LinkedIn. We accept LinkedIn requests all the time. And I don't think I ever go back and actually look and see who's in my LinkedIn network, right? So when you start daydreaming about, okay, this place is toxic. Here's where I want to go. Here's what I want to do. Look, use your LinkedIn network. That's because I think sometimes when you hear the word networking, people get overwhelmed, especially if you're an introvert. You think, oh my God, I have to go to like a speed dating event where I'm talking to a bunch of people. Networking can be just literally setting up a 30-minute lunch or 30-minute coffee with someone that you haven't talked to in a while. And it's just as easy as sending them a quick LinkedIn message. People are really bold on LinkedIn. I say this as head of talent acquisition because I get a ton of messages from people soliciting services. But if it would be nice if somebody were to send me a message to say, hey, Carolyn, I used to work with you at, X company. I'm in the job market right now looking, and I would love to just pick your brain to understand it with, no attachments, no promises. Because on the receiving end of that message, sometimes you think, well, I don't have a job for you. But if you approach it as a, hey, I'll buy you lunch. Let's just get reconnected. I'd love to hear what you've been up to. No pressure, maybe put it out there. I think that would be helpful too. And that just kind of gets you out of your toxic environment for a little bit, but also can help build because you never know who knows someone else. You never, ever know. So I think starting with LinkedIn, think about the online or in your personal life, look through your phone. There are people that you put in your phone that you just forget about. But when you're in a toxic environment, getting out of it is key. So using the people that are already in your life, I think can help that.
There's this Instagram reel where friends are getting together and they're doing like a PowerPoint presentation of the work that they do. Yeah. I think it's so funny because we're often in community with folks and we don't even really know what they do. Yep. So I often encourage my clients to talk to your friends.
Yeah.
Let them know that you're looking. And that can plant a seed that if they're in a different conversation, they may think of you. And so talk to your networks. I love that, Carolyn, because there's resources all around us that we often overlook.
And I used to be one of those people who did not believe in the phrase, it's who you know. I did not believe it at all. I navigated most of my career working with recruiters. So I thought it was based on my skill set, and that's what I would lead with. I'm like, I've never gotten any job because I knew someone, but my brother is completely different. He's gotten all of his jobs because of people that he knew. And I will say, this year, I have seen the power of networking. I have literally seen it. My clients have been using it, and we have been implementing outreach strategies now where it's just saying hi to someone. And we don't offer lunch, we offer coffee because we're on a budget.
True. Right.
Same thing. Or tea, either way, it works.
So that has been working tremendously. And actually, I was able to get my next role because of a recruiter that helped me over 10 years ago. Because she's now a recruiter at this company. I was like, oh, wow. So this actually does work. So I'm now a believer.
Yeah.
But I wholeheartedly believe in and coming up with a strategy that feels good to you, because this is what I said, when you have clarity on what it is you want to do and how you want to contribute to the workplace, it's easier to ask for help or to ask for an introduction. If you're stressed and you're still in that toxic environment, you're like, I just want any job. I'm good at project management. I'm good at X. And you're like, wait. I can't help you. You have too much going on. But when you're clear and you feel, strategic, people start thinking, oh, she's a good project manager. Then they start they start going through their Rolodex. Then it's easier to help you in that way. So I would say definitely take the time to be strategic about how you want to approach your network. in a way that feels good and it doesn't feel pushy and aggressive, you know?
And I would say highlight your strengths. You know, when you think about all the things that you may do at work, you may have a lot of skills. Pick one to shine on.
Yes, please.
Yes.
You know?
Black women are skilled in all the things. So make
One
it
or two.
easy. Pick one or two.
Yeah. But I think it's good. I think all of the exercises that you've highlighted for people who are actually navigating the layoff, even if it's post-layoff and you are a quote-unquote survivor, you can still walk through those same, I guess, exercises to work towards clarity in terms of what you want next. And essentially what I hear you saying is, no, you're not really stuck. You're only stuck as you allow yourself to be. And it's funny, I had a guest last season, Rashida. I was initially introduced to her because her sister and I worked together, and she connected us because I was looking for an opportunity to, do something different. And what I love about Rashida is she's absolutely no nonsense. And so I'm talking and she was like, okay, I don't know what you want. How can I help you? And I was like, you know what? You're right. I don't really know what I want right now. I just want to be out of here. And so I had to go back and do that work. But I think it speaks to what you're saying. Do the work, whether you've been laid off, whether you've survived a layoff and you're still kind of nervous. And then even if you're in a toxic environment, do the work. Figure out what it is that you want. Because a lot of what we talk about with this podcast is that your career is by design. So you can let it happen to you or you can be in charge of it. But I didn't want to go too far without saying, April, as just in terms of dealing with our mental health, if we, have survived a layoff, or even if the layoff isn't here yet, there's kind of the threat of one and we're in a toxic environment, it's already hard enough. And as Kimmoy has said, as Black women, we are already managing enough. How do we continue to build ourselves up to walk into that door every day and deal with all the things and not let it, harm us or our personal lives?
I think there's a number of strategies, Alicia, that people can employ. The first that comes to mind, though, I am a firm believer that we are meant to live in community. And so I really do believe that you can have a supervisor and a support team within your company, but I think it's imperative that you have those same resources outside of your company. And so when you have things like a supervisor or a mentor, I love that there's some distance when you have that resource outside of your company, because then you can be a bit more unfiltered and you can garner support that's not, tied and connected to your employment. And so having those spaces where you can seek support completely separate from your organization. I often use this analogy for sports. I'm a big sports person. And, you see these athletes perform these amazing games in different sports. But they don't just hop on the field or hop on the court. They have a warm up. They take some laps. They're listening to music. They're getting in the zone. I often help my clients create, what is your warm up ritual before you go to work? You should not be hopping out the bed, hopping in the shower, in your car to work. Let's put some intentionality behind that. If you know it's going to be a tough day because you guys got that big meeting, where is your prayer? Right? Where is your conversation with yourself? Some mirror work. You can do this. Positive affirmations. Really being intentional with how you step on that field, step into that space so that you are prepared, essentially. And so we talk about that pre-warm up. We talk about strategies that you can employ mid activity. So within the meeting, are you grounding yourself? Are you taking deep breaths? Are you remembering your goals? Are you finding a focal point if this is a very intense meeting? Are you taking a break, right? And then we talk about the post. What do you do after those interactions for yourself? Do you just hop back into the work again? Or do you just hop back into more difficult conversations? Or do you ground yourself? Go to the restroom, wash your hands, do some deep breathing, get outside, take some deep breaths, call your mama, do something to ground yourself before you move into the next step. And so helping people to slow down and understanding that they have so many skills that they can incorporate naturally without buying something or committing to something, really helps them to feel more prepared to navigate those stressful experiences.
Two things. Remember, it's a two-way street. That it's not, this job should not be on the pedestal, right? It's not, oh my gosh, this big, huge job. I have to do everything right and make sure everything is great. And it's a two-way street. So they're giving you something and you're giving them something. So turn up the volume on what you're providing, what you're stepping into the space with. How are you showing up in that space? And also turn up the volume outside of work. When you take work from that pedestal and you bring it down a couple of notches and you turn up your life, your joy, your faith, your hobbies, your interests, your travel, of course, right? When you turn up those things, work kind of seems like a smaller bit of your life. It's a good component, but it doesn't take up so much space. And I think that changes a perspective on things. If you're not a doctor, I've always said this my entire life, since like high school, this is not a life or death situation.
Yeah.
Keep that toxic energy over there. Nobody's going to die because of a missed deadline or because the boss is upset, right? So, much respect to everyone who works in a healthcare and deals with that sort of thing. But yeah, just kind of turn up the volume on your life outside of work. And remember when you show up to work that you're bringing all of you and your knowledge, your skill sets, your experience, your perspective to that place too. And that has a lot of value. So yeah, I would say even the scales a little bit more.
I would add to that, just on the interviewing front, I was just coaching someone the other day about interviewing. And I was like, remember, you're interviewing the company as well. I think people go into interviews like it's like, a Shark Tank. Like, oh my gosh, they're just I'm like, it's a two-way street. You need to walk in with that energy of, I am here. I want to work for this company because I have goals that I want to fulfill personally, but I also know what I can do for you. I said, and you need to be interviewing that company and making sure that they are a fit for you. Don't walk in with desperation. Yeah, you might be desperate. Don't show it though. Walk in saying, okay, you know what? This is great. You look good on paper, but how are you? Ask those questions to really suss out, is this the place you want to spend the next year or 2 or 3 or 4? Making sure that it's a power balance. But I think I can just say this on the HR side. So many people come to interviews just super nervous because they're like, they cede all the power to the interviewer. And it should be both. You're interviewing me and I'm interviewing you. I need to see if you're a fit just as much as you need to see if I'm a fit. So I think as folks who've gotten laid off and they're, getting back into the job search, I think in addition to what Kimmoy and April said, just keep that in mind. It's a mindset shift.
And that's a wonderful segue, Carolyn, because that was kind of my next question in terms of like, you as this Black woman, you've been laid off, you've rested again. I'm going to keep bringing back those points in case you join this conversation at a different time. But you've done the fun employment, you've done some coffee chats, you've connected with your network, you've gotten clarity around what you want to do next, and now you have landed the job. Should I feel secure now? Or what is the work that needs to continue now that I've gotten my next job?
Yeah, I would say the things that we talked about earlier, definitely make sure at the 6-month mark, you've took some time to reflect what you've done, what you've contributed. Is this still working for me? Make sure you still have your savings. I recommend automating your savings. The book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, is really good about that. It walks you through step by step how to automate your savings and investments. I would say show up with a 90-day plan too. Like, how do you want to show up in the first few months of this new job? How do you, and also realize the job isn't the one that gives you security. You give yourself security. You make yourself feel secure. So what does that look like for you? Do you need to have a certain amount to feel secure? Do you need to have access to, like, for example, one of my clients, she had a situation where she had to hire an employment lawyer at her last job. So this time around, she wanted to make sure she had access to employment lawyer that was more affordable. Should anything happen, I need to make sure I have that set aside. So what do you need? You know, she was a mom. She needed a couple months for daycare set aside should anything happen. If you're a homeowner, maybe you need to have 6 months of your mortgage. So keep those things in mind with your new job. Like, what do you need to feel secure? Because the job isn't the one giving you that security.
And I would say when you land your new opportunity, approach it from the perspective of this is a new place for me to add value, network within the company, right? Get to know your human resources representative, get to know your manager's peers, really get in. I know a lot of times, especially as Black women, depending on where some of us are first generation corporate baddies, as they say, and we are taught to put our head down and do our work. That's not going to work, right? We have to pick your head up, go to lunch with people, go to the coffee breaks, and really immerse yourself in where you're at, right? Be seen. It's okay to do that, but also be authentic to who you are. If you're not comfortable with, just being out there and out and about and you're not an extrovert, that's okay. Pick that one person on your floor that's just as quiet as you are and eat lunch with them, right? But make yourself seen and known to where you're not just another number within the organization. Because I think it's really easy to be like, well, I got hired because of my skills, but it's almost like, well, what got you there won't keep you there. I think people really underestimate the value of networking while they're in their company. Even if you're getting the great performance reviews and you're getting you're outstanding, you're exceptional. But how are we going to keep that? What's your next opportunity within that company? How do you know what's out there for you? So, I think there's something about thrive where you're planted and grow where you're at. There's some techniques you can do like that to help you thrive in this new environment.
And April, again, how do I continue to build on, the practices that I've established? I've kind of processed, walking through a layoff, whether it be first round or a second or third round. I've, figured out kind of my schedule. I like how you say that what my warm up is. I'm doing that. But again, now that I'm in a new environment, sometimes we can start to feel quote unquote safe, and those things go out the window. So what would you recommend we do as we shift into a new season, out of this layoff season?
As you all were talking, I was thinking of the celebration. Like you've succeeded at getting a job, right? You made it essentially. And so I want to honor that, celebrate, dance, whatever, right? And then remember how you got there. Remember what it was like to not be there. And allow that to encourage you to keep doing those things that might feel uncomfortable, stepping outside the box, setting new goals, right? So that you are keeping that same energy that allowed you to get to this place, that you're not really getting comfortable. I don't know if that really exists anymore. That sense of just blind comfort.
Yeah.
I think the last year or two has shown us that's not really completely real in how we've conceptualized it before. And so I think continuing to hone in on your skills, continue to step out the box and practice new things. When we talk about volunteering, it's not just about going to, serve food somewhere, but volunteering could be signing up for a podcast or endeavoring to be on a panel of some sort where you can create opportunities to network, but really stepping outside the box and identifying new challenges so that you stay a bit thirsty, that you stay a bit hungry to keep going for, the next step.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for today. I have absolutely enjoyed this conversation. This was exactly what I wanted, to have a conversation that offered not only just strategies, but I feel like those seeds, like Carolyn said, you thrive and you bloom where you're planted. And sometimes we have to step out of ourselves and discover those. And so I absolutely appreciate your time today. Thank you for being here with us. I would ask I know you've given us so much already, but if there are any final thoughts or recommendations or advice that you would offer two Black women currently navigating a layoff season, whether it be early career, mid-career, or on the latter part of our career. All of us are kind of dealing with this. What would you offer to encourage them or to walk away with?
I would say trouble doesn't last always. And even this part of your journey is meaningful. And so this will be a part of your story. And so continue to look forward to the current to change. And it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay.
I would say don't let the layoff define you. Look at it as an opportunity to do something new, to chart a new path, to chart a new journey. You're valuable. You have experience. There are things that have shaped you to be in the position that you're in now. So how are you going to utilize that to move forward? Just reflect upon that. Use your network. Use the resources, your community that's around you, and know that you're going to be fine.
I mean, they both said it very well. Get the support. Don't stay in the struggle too long. There's an abundance of support available to help you through the process. So, yeah, ask for help, speak up. Don't go through it alone.
Well, April, Carolyn, Kimmoy, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you. I really hope that you found some value and encouragement in today's conversation around navigating a layoff season. I just wanted to reiterate some of the seeds and strategies we talked about. It's not you, it's the market. You are worthy and valuable. You just need to take time to remind yourself how much. Everything is cyclical in markets. This too will pass, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Fear during a layoff is understandable. So is anger and betrayal and frustration. Give yourself grace. Take time to process and take it one day at a time. You will absolutely come out successfully on the other side. In the meantime, get connected so that you don't feel alone. Get out there and talk to people in your network. That's what's going to get you your next role or help you leave the one you're in. Finally, be proactive, not just in job searching, but reviving your creativity, resting, having joyful experiences, and taking time out that you wouldn't usually have to enjoy the people and the places around you. I promise you, them bills ain't going nowhere, so you might as well have a little fun. With that, thank you so much again to April, Carolyn, and Kimmoy. I hope that the seeds and strategies are timely for you and you can walk away with something good from today's conversation. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Take some time to reflect on what you heard here. Be sure to follow us on IG and subscribe to our newsletter on Substack. Find us at Thriving in the Game on both. If you have a comment or recommendation, DM or email me. You can find my email in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you as we build community around thriving in the game. Until next time, take care.